Hey teachers, welcome back to the channel. I'm Haley here at Teacher's Pet. I am a full-time assistant teaching professor for load at an R2 university. And in this video series, we set up our planners, calendars, bullet journals together to prepare for the week ahead. I'm really excited about this week. For me, we are entering finals week, so it is the end of the semester. And so I really, feeling stressed, obviously, just making sure to get all of the final projects and papers and grades and makeup work and all that kind of submitted, but also I'm feeling really light, bright, and excited, hopeful for the final week and the week ahead. And so for this video, I encourage you to grab your bullet journal and just dedicate the time with me to set up what you need to do. Share any stories, experiences, stuff you are looking forward to, the theme of your journal in the comments. I would definitely love to hear about it. And while you are setting up your journal, I am going to tell a little story about what I was up to last week in class. This week it is going to be my lesson plan on career development, because I do teach sort of first, second year level class, and I just think it's important, and my students have reflected really positively about it in their, checkout materials, to be transparent and set more appropriate expectations about how to get the most out of college, what we're doing here, what to expect once they graduate, how to set themselves up better for our very competitive market, especially since I do teach at, an R2. It is one of the more like a smaller kind of satellite campus of a main state university system. And so I just really wanted to make sure my students, even though they are first, second year students, have some of the tools and knowledge to ensure they spend their next 2 to 3, 4 years as productively as possible, for them to be as competitive as possible, because who knows what market they will graduate out into, especially. So that's kind of the plan for today. Go ahead and grab that planner, grab that journal. We're gonna hop in to me setting up mine while you set up yours, talking through the theme, and I'll just tell you about my career development lesson plan. All right, let's do it. All right, so, right as reading in, of course, I need to set up my lines and line drawings. This is my first time actually using bullet journals instead of a pre-printed planner. So I absolutely have to use little sticky notes and tags and pencil in my ideas first. But last week I'd actually tried doing a split column list for priority and non-priority tasks, and that worked really well. So I'm gonna adopt that again this kind of week as I go through. So while we're just drawing and decorating, let me tell you about my career development unit. This is one of my favorites. I always do it the very last week of class. My this particular class is a intro to technical writing class. It counts as their second year, second level, core writing, except the college of like engineering, and then our, computer science and cyber and those majors take this class as their second level writing, instead of, the other like composition and kind of essay based classes. And so with that, we do really focus in on the type of documentation and reports and manuals that those career fields tend to use and need. So with it being technically a 2000 or 200 level class, they are early, right, in their kind of career development. They are early in figuring out, what they want to do. Most of them have picked the major, and that's why they're in this class, because they've already sort of signed into those majors. But there's obviously still so many variations in job titles and functions and, niche specifics within kind of the engineering fields and computer science, and like data analyst fields. So this lesson plan started out with my spouse, he was a chemical engineer as a major in college, and worked in that kind of lab environment for a while before actually self-teaching, self-taught, a lot of different programming languages and getting much more into coding, and is now a machine learning engineer and the chief tech guy, and the power behind Teacher's Pet in terms of taking my sort of complaints about the existing tools and turning them into something that has been extremely helpful for me throughout all of my class prep. So with his kind of story, he used to, come in and do actual guest lectures in my class this week, but of course now our schedules are just a little bit too challenging to make that work. So I recorded a video of him answering questions from my PAT that my students have submitted in the past. Just about what it is like switching careers, what, classes within, his engineering programs, and courses did he like, what he wished he would have learned, those types of kind of videos and questions. And so the students get access to that, like in their reading homework portal. They'll watch the 20-minute video of him answering these questions that really speaks to, their career goals and majors. And then I also found a workbook through my campus's library, a digital download, that, I kind of point my students towards and say, hey, you should check out this book from the library, or, digitally download, check it out. It's called 101 Career Myths. I'll link the citation in the description if you want to check it out for your classes. But it just has a lot of activities and sort of thoughtful prompts that students can go through to make sure that they, are on their kind of career development track and goals. So I also pulled some of the, one of the activities from that I really resonated with into my actual lab today. So for my class, we are hybrid, which means I meet once a week for 75 minutes with each of my sections, and then everything else is online and they do asynchronously. So for the lab section, that 175-minute period, we came in and I didn't really have too many like announcements or anything since it's the end of class, but we always kind of start with that. And then the first activity, which also served as my connection of class kind of concepts to real life, which is how I always like to start my sections, was a transparent conversation about Preston's career path, as well as mine. And so when I say transparent, I really mean I just told them exactly kind of the experiences, including salaries and pay scales at each of the jobs that we actually held, like how much we actually got paid in those positions, how long we were in them, some of the things that we each did to help us advance, get promotions, why we chose, this career step over that one, just to be really honest with them. And I know talking about, money and salary can be challenging, and a lot of people feel really uncomfortable with that, and I definitely understand that, but also especially I think for students, they need realistic, honest, actual examples of the mentors and the people in their life talking about their careers, because there definitely is that tendency, right? We throw out, the median salary for different majors and jobs. And yes, that is true. And a part of our activity was finding that data and, having a kind of a data literacy conversation around what it means. But we throw out those numbers and, people will kind of talk about the positions that they're maybe currently in and tend to not want to bring up the path that it took to get to kind of their main career where they're at now. And I think it sets up a lot of students to assume they're going to be making that median salary as soon as they graduate, or they're going to have this dream job as soon as they graduate, which we know is not realistic for, 90% right of our students. And especially myself being at a much smaller, less resource, but less well-known institution. I just wanted them to have a good data-driven, eyes wide open understanding of what to expect. And in their lab reflections, a lot of them really appreciated and talked about wow, this did really help me set different, I think more realistic expectations. I'm actually way more motivated to put more into my experience at college. I realized that, it's not just classes, but I need to be doing other things to be competitive. All of that, which I call a win, and I think that's really good. So yeah, we literally went through each of our resumes, and talked and shared little stories and, advice, things that we learned, things that we experienced that we both had wished, you know, our professors and mentors when we were in college had actually told us and prepared us about, and just went all the way from very, very first jobs, which, paid extremely low and kind of sucked because that's what happens when it's your first job after graduating, all the way through every step and timeline to our current positions, where of course we are feeling much more fulfilled and hitting a lot of those now median salary targets for our respective careers. And then I also graphed it out because my class, is technical writing, so we like graphs and charts and whatnot. And so that was another good practice of like, and here's the data story and the graph. And, did also show them, right? My husband being in not only the private sector, but also startup with data and AI. His graph looks very different than mine, right? Being in the private sector, like actually started lower, but had a lot more like sort of spikes and jumps, and then obviously an overall much higher salary line than mine. And me staying in education, is just much more consistent, right? It's gone up a little bit, but it's more of a steady line. And there are some students right in my class that were asking good questions about grad school because they're kind of interested in it. Also some students that are thinking about working in more of like government sector and nonprofit sectors. And so it was really, again, just good and candid to open that conversation and dialogue with them. So I really love that. Of course, depends on the level of student that you're with perhaps and the rapport you have, but I definitely find that it was a really a little bit different, unique. They're like, wow, no one's ever like just talked to us about that before. Like, yeah, I bet. And I think there's a lot of power to that. So you might just consider, in places that could be comfortable. Maybe you do it for your own senior like level seminars, for your own majors if you're a college professor. Though I would be concerned, like I still have this conversation with my like upper division courses, but I feel like it's most impactful actually for my lower division students, because they still have so much time left in college to try and bulk up their resume a little bit. So anyway, after we did that, then I pulled a bunch of, resources and websites for them to go research and explore about a couple of their career options. So we started with it's called PALMS, but it's just a personal audit, and they had to spend a few minutes identifying, personality traits, abilities that they have, things they're willing to get better at, likes, dislikes, their meanings and values, what kind of industries and fields and work do they want to contribute to, and supplemental factors. So after about 5-6 minutes, they had all those notes in a little table set up, and then we went into, okay, pick 2 of your potential career interest areas, and they set up a new table so they could directly compare, the outlook, the salary, the key verbs, right? The responsibilities and the job descriptions, and align that with their personal audit, their personality, likes, dislikes, abilities kind of chart. And we just went through things like the Occupational Outlook Handbook from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We went through onetonline.org, which kind of breaks down in way, I think, better detail, like the types of tools and technology and skills and responsibilities for different job titles. And then I, showed them some various salary resources that could break it down by like region, state, that kind of stuff. And yeah, they just spent, 20 minutes exploring and taking notes and checking in with folks. There was, a lot that were like, yeah, this is kind of what I expected, but now I just, again, am thinking more critically about it. And of course, there were a few that were like, oh, actually, I explored something a little bit different, like a little different type of job or job title. And I'm really interested in that. And I think I'm going to, research and explore it more. So that was all really, really good. I just love watching them do that. And I do find it personally like fulfilling to feel like I'm giving them real tools and insight and advice to just make sure they have, again, logical, data driven, eyes wide open kind of expectations. And then we just ended with, basic review of everything from the class, how to set up portfolios, and more advice for how to make the most out of college. I also do like a mini game, just ask them how many universities they think are in the US, and their guesses are always wild, sometimes as low as 50, sometimes as high as 200,000, which just shows they really have no kind of conception of actually how many people are graduating with bachelor's degrees now, and just how competitive and how saturated in many ways the market is. And yeah, not, and I don't tell them that in a disparaging, like give up kind of way, just in a realistic, like having a degree, just having that on your resume is like, it's not enough to really be competitive for the jobs that I'm sure you're dreaming of. So now with this new knowledge, how are you going to spend your next few years, making yourself more competitive and unique, and what are you going to do on this campus with your time to kind of work up to that. And yeah, and then we just have the very, very final sort of thanks for being here. I make them as the last activity, give themselves a round of applause, and I like make them do it with their whole chest. And at first it was awkward, but at the end they're like laughing and smiling and just reminding them that they got through a whole semester. Writing class is a lot of work, and trying to emphasize, right? And I go through some of the bright spots I saw from the class, growth areas, like trying just to end on a really high note before saying goodbye. And that is the end of my semester. All right, so as my thing is done, the theme, right, I went with this really pretty kind of summery peacock theme, mostly because I just needed and wanted to get these stickers used, but also because it just feels like a nice, happy, springy, like time of transformation as finals week is upon us, which I really, really love, and I do think it's kind of pretty, right? I definitely need to like my spreads and how it's decorated for me to like feel good about it. So filling in kind of that key data, like I said, it's week 17 or finals week for my semester, which runs May 11th through the 17th. And the important stuff that I need to handle and do this week, I have to obviously clear all the grades that are coming in. My students are submitting project portfolios, like a little media portfolio where they talk about their work and put it in context of the class, explain how their project represents a good example of it. They have a revision opportunity if they need to go fix a project for more points, and I do allow a super extension so they can go back and complete any one previously skipped project, because my students have a ton of choice in my class. There's way more projects than they need to complete, and it kind of forced them to make choices. But if they didn't quite get the grade that they wanted, they can always go back and complete a project during finals week. So I'll be working on that, which means I need to clear all those grades, finalize the points for the class, get ready to submit those grade rosters. I also need to start compiling my annual review, is due right after final grades are submitted, and I am working on some end of semester video projects for my fellowship with the Office of the Provost, so we'll be getting those in. My playlist this week, since I have a lot of grading and need to focus but also want to be high vibes, is called West Coast Sunset Vibes. You can grab that playlist link in the video description, but it basically is just kind of chill, like chill, energetic. Imagine you are looking out over the Pacific Ocean, and just like feeling really like happy and summery, but also it's not so intense that I can't focus and grade while it's on in the background. And with that, since it is the end of the semester, the quote is, "Some dreams keep on getting better. You gotta keep believing if you want to know for sure." Which I just thought was very fitting, given how we had just discussed career development and professional planning. And as my students are wrapping up their semesters and starting to look ahead to what's going to happen, over the summer and in the fall, I just think it's a really nice kind of sweet reminder. All right, otherwise, I don't really have much on my like must-do side in terms of events and, hard blocks, just regular training and stuff. Though Friday, I want to reconcile all of my grades, and then Saturday actually submit those. Otherwise, I fill out my other must-dos and could-dos in the morning for my tasks. And then the little squares on the side I might use for weekly or like daily, little stats and updates. I also like to decorate and put just like stickers in the morning there, so I might do that as well. But otherwise, I'm excited for a week ahead. All right. Thanks, teachers, educators, grad students, just general planners, whoever is joining me. I hope that your planner is all set up and you love what you created for yourself, that you feel prepared, ready to tackle probably close to the end of the semester or the academic year for you as well. If you found this video helpful and like listening and hearing other people's lesson plans and class ideas, definitely consider sharing this video with a grad student, educator, teacher in your life. And please, in the comments, let me know what lesson plans you did last week or what's an activity that you really loved. I definitely want to hear from all of you. All right, let's get through another week in May. Proud of you, proud of me, proud of my students. Have a great one, and I hope you have a great class.